Cameras have a knack for capturing disturbing footage of things we usually only have nightmares about. Well, today we've got all sorts of ghostly figures and a UFO to talk about, so I hope you're ready. Life after death is one of many mysteries that has consistently generated human curiosity for generations. Some believe in the existence of souls after death, while others think that the soul of a dead family member wanders around near and dear for a couple of days. Well, CCTV footage from Michigan back in May created a stir on social media, where we see a ghostly figure appearing to be hovering over and staring at a sleeping figure. According to the report, a mysterious figure was captured on one of the security cameras of a John Kipke, a Michigan resident, at his 100-year-old farmhouse. The incident occurred a month following the death of the sleeping human's grandfather. So the scary picture we have features a ghostly figure hovering over Kipke's youngest son, who was asleep on the floor. The figure was only captured by one of the cameras installed in the house, which only takes snapshots instead of recording video. Kipke shared the image on Facebook, noting his uncertainty about the spirit, saying, "I'm not sure what this is, but one of my inside cameras picked this up. Unfortunately, the inside system does not go in video mode, just snapshots of movement and sound. To my knowledge, I have never been contacted from the other side or had any strange things happen to me in my home, but I live in a 100-year-old farmhouse. Also, that is my youngest son sleeping on the floor. I just thought this was interesting." Well, since it's posting on Facebook, Ghosts Caught on Camera, this video has garnered a lot of mixed reactions. Many social media users have thought, a lot of folks have opinions. While some folks believe it to be a spirit, some called it a smudge on the camera, and some others suggested that the family should leave the house immediately. One of the users wrote that this looks like a gentleman, as he is wearing a cap and it seems like he is looking at the sun, saying like it looks like a gentleman, you can see the outline of his body, head, shoulders, and arms. Now another user thought it to be an elderly woman because of the kind of coat that the ghost is wearing. He said, well, like, could be plausible. Another user wrote that the face was so blurred and nothing was clear that you can't really know. What do you think, dear viewer? An observant New Hampshire woman had online paranormal buffs quaking in their boots after seemingly spotting a ghost in a graveyard on a popular mapping service back in January. She's like, I think I might have just found like a ghost on Google Maps, or like Google Maps' first ghost. This was a direct quote from uploader Amy Pendleton in this suddenly viral TikTok clip that shows off the alleged apparition. So Pendleton instructed viewers to Google the Gelson Cemetery in Nashua, New Hampshire, apparently a veritable mecca for ghost hunters and other believers in otherworldly activity. So Pendleton toggles Google to a 360 panorama view and takes a stroll down the road, revealing a spooky figure with a blurred out face lurking behind a set of stone walls. Zooming in reveals what looks like the head and torso of a middle-aged man leering at the viewer like something out of an occult horror movie. And that's just the tip of the supposed paranormal iceberg. In a follow-up clip, the footage shows another, more abstract, shadowy entity standing behind the wall to the left of the original ghostie. Wait, is that another one? That's a ghost for sure, she exclaims as the iconic theme song from Ghostbusters kicks in. That was in the TikTok obby. The apparent search engine Spectre caused a stir among paranormal activity fanatics, and this was all online. One commenter said, "That's what they call the gravekeeper. He's very fast." Another was like, "I think I've seen this. Nice." Some folks did speculate that the explanation was more rooted in reality. May have just been someone walking. Are you sure that's not just a blurry guy? Even Pendleton questioned the so-called spectral event, saying Google often edits out a person caught by the Google car. The street view blurring guy maybe did like a, half job. I mean, is it a bush? Legitimacy of the sighting notwithstanding, Gelson Cemetery has long been a hub for so-called haunted phenomena. Sightseers have reported everything from glowing lights to fog rolling in out of nowhere, like something out of Dracula. Other folks have heard screaming. Some people were even pushed by an unknown entity. Some folks even claimed they saw some spooky passersby, including a woman in a white dress and a small human wandering around the tombstones. Among these strangest sightings is an alleged hole in the center of the grave of Walter Gilson, who died on August 28th of 1811 at a really young age. Driving down an empty road at night can be super duper creepy. The last thing you need is a supernatural element added into the equation. Well, I guess you can't tell the ghost what to do though. So one woman from Fresno was forced to deal with it when she appeared to have a ghostly sighting on January 22nd. Now thankfully she did at least have footage of the scene to allow other people, such as ourselves, to share in her experience. She shared the video after seeing the ghost while on her drive home from the Table Mountain Casino, which she recorded due to the fog patches lingering on the road that night. As the car made its way around a long bend, what looked like a transparent figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the road and took a couple of steps towards the other lane. Just as quickly as it appeared, the ghostly figure disappeared once again into the night as the car continued to approach. A caption on the video reads, "Y'all see that? The sighting took place at approximately 8:50 p.m. along Friant Road. This is a place that's been the site of numerous fatal accidents over the years. Just last year, a woman died after her car collided with a tow truck at around 1 a.m. in the morning. Also last year, a 50-year-old doctor and his wife died on the road after crashing into a tree. According to local sources, legend suggests that the ghost of a former police officer patrols the road and pulls over cars to warn them about potential accidents. Now, this officer is believed to have died on a stretch of the road in a car crash years ago. Back to our footage. What did the viewers have to say? Well, one person said, definitely a ghost. Somebody else was like, yep, I've seen and heard many ghosts on this road. But then, of course, you must consult the skeptics. More than likely, dust just kicked up by a breeze. Looks like oncoming car light reflecting fog. Some viewers have claimed the footage is edited, but whatever the explanation, just be careful when you're driving, folks, especially at night. Another woman's spine-chilling kitchen footage has stirred up quite the frenzy online, with a lot of folks being like, okay, this one's real. The clip we have opens to an ordinary nighttime scene, about 10:15 at night. Everything's pitch black, there's nobody around, but in a matter of seconds, a long, thin claw grabs the camera lens and drags it to the right. Viewers never see who or what the culprit was. We always had a feeling we weren't the only ones there, said the woman who posted it to Facebook. My mother wanted to see if she could find out more as to where some noises were coming from, decided to set up a motion detector camera in her home a couple of days prior. She has caught a few orbs, which tend to be energy connected to ghosts or spirits, and this was something completely new. They asked, like, anyone have any other thoughts or ideas as to what this could be? Seems to be see-through. Also sounds like it maybe taps on the camera. Let me know in the comments what you think. And finally for today, a routine drive turned into a scene straight out of a sci-fi movie for a Canadian couple as they encountered pulsating lights as bright as the sun hanging in the sky over in Manitoba. Justin Stevenson and his partner Danielle were left awestruck by the mysterious phenomenon. So the video that we have today, that was shared by the couple on social media, shows these dazzling lights that are super bright like a fire, hovering over the Winnipeg River. Stevenson, a self-proclaimed skeptic of the paranormal, was left speechless. Yo, I think we're seeing some aliens for real, he can be heard saying in the footage he captured of the encounter. The couple pulled over, very smart, as they trained their eyes on the two sun-like orbs dancing in the twilight, when another set of bright lights materialized nearby. It felt like we were in a sci-fi movie, Stevenson told a local news outlet. The sighting sparked quite the frenzy on socials, because this video obviously went viral, getting about 650,000 views. And there was a lot of debate. Is this a military flare? Is this a clear shot of a UFO? One person was like, might just be these new military mega flares used for illumination, usually search and rescue. Whereas somebody else was like, I'm not saying it's aliens from outer space, but I really can't see lights from a high-rise being the culprit. And then of course we have the skeptics being like, yeah, no. But at the end of the day, the true nature of the lights remains a mystery. Everybody on socials is like, maybe it's a disguised jet, maybe we don't know. Is Queen Elizabeth haunting Windsor Castle almost 2 years after she died? Well, according to a royal superfan who was on the premises as the building is open to the public, the late monarch was apparently captured in some snapshots they had taken. Radar Online reported that the visitors spotted a white flash in their lens while taking photos inside the castle. Kind of similar to an orb. Now they say, I'm not a believer in anything beyond the grave, but I don't think there's any arguing with these images. I am fully aware people will say this could be a trick of the lens or a light flash or whatever, but I've looked into it and it's highly unlikely the form of my image is any of that. It's clearly the Queen's spirit and she looks so unsettled. You can tell by the expression on her face. She looks like she's in limbo and lost. They added, I'm a royalist and it was sad for me to think she is wandering around forever, just dressed in one of the outfits she used to wear on state visits. You can see she's got the old handbag, coat, and hat. I'm stunned I captured this, and it's no wonder she's troubled. Look at the mess her family's in. She used to be the glue that held the institution together, and she now looks anguished over what is happening to it. What do you think? Is the Queen haunting us? This horrifying footage shows the dramatic moment a 100-foot wide sinkhole swallowed up a soccer pitch in just a matter of seconds. So this terrifying video emerged from Illinois in the US, showing just how quickly things can go from being fine to being like a scene from an apocalyptic movie. So in this particular case, two perfectly good artificial soccer and football fields were destroyed in just 5 seconds. Nowadays, a crater sits in the middle of Gordon F. Moore Community Park in the city of Alton, but I guess things could have been a lot worse. Fortunately for everybody, the pitches weren't in use, because if they were, anybody within a couple of feet of the sinkhole would not be here today, going off of the sheer ferocity that the floodlight was thrown into the gaping hole. But how does something like this even happen? Also, what is a sinkhole? Like, we've all heard this word. And well, yes, we do know that it is a hole that randomly appears in the ground, or at least it's random to us. I think that's the extent of my knowledge. What about you? So a sinkhole is a depression in the ground that has no natural external surface drainage. Long story short, this just means that when it rains, all the water stays inside the sinkhole and typically drains into the subsurface. And according to the United States Geological Survey, or or USGS for short, they're most common in what geologists call karst terrain. These are the regions where the types of rock below the land surface can naturally be dissolved by groundwater circulating through them. So soluble rocks include salt beds, domes, gypsum, limestone, other carbonate rock. So while Florida, for instance, is an area largely underlain by limestone, it's highly susceptible to sinkholes. So when water from rainfall moves down through the soil, these types of rocks begin to dissolve, and that's how we get those underground spaces and caverns. Sinkholes are dramatic because the land usually stays intact for a period of time until the underground spaces just get too big and then all gone. The historic Plaza Resort and Spa on A1 and Seabreeze Boulevard in Daytona Beach has seen a lot of comings and goings, including spring breakers back in the 90s, but some ghostly visitors back in 2013 left a lot of employees kind of spooked. Why? Well, it's simple. They thought the hotel was haunted. This place is well over a century old, and the employees think some former guests might have either returned or never left. Hotel security chief Chris Lankowitz and his staff were watching security monitors when they saw something odd moving through a downstairs bar. They're like, it wasn't dust, wasn't a flashlight, there was nobody on property causing stuff to mess with, other employees. Apparently this apparition moved about, changing sizes, and when a guard went down to check, the ghostly presence was hiding. There was nothing around. And even though the guard couldn't see anything, he felt something. And later, on the security video, the apparition almost took on the shape of a person and then bolted. Employees said there have been strange sightings and sounds from all corners of the hotel, the hallways, the bathrooms, and even hotel rooms. Kinda like room 1111, where a guest apparently fell to his death from a balcony about 7 years before. According to the head of security, he's like, I've had doors held, like you're pulling out a door and the door is not locked, and you walk in and there's nobody in there. So because of the scary activity in the bar and other suspicious activity, a paranormal investigator was supposed to pay the hotel a visit and even stay in one of these supposedly haunted rooms. But sadly, I couldn't find any records of an investigation, so let me know in the comments if you know anything. A homeowner was left stunned when he went onto his home security camera footage after his dog's persistent barking to find a spooky figure outside the home. Retired professional driver Corey Fletcher from Minnesota, USA, was kind of confused when his dog named Diva began barking persistently at the door, which normally indicates somebody's outside. However, when Corey went to check outside his house, he didn't see anything. And he's like, okay, what's my dog barking at? Corey was like, alright, we're gonna do the rational thing. We decided to check the footage, seeing as our living room window was open and Diva was barking up a storm. Now, according to Corey, Diva never barks at anything unless specifically there is somebody right at the door. So when she barks, they assume there's somebody at the house. But the barking wasn't stopping. When Diva kept making a fuss, Corey was like, okay, let's check the security camera footage. Maybe somebody played Ding Dong Ditch, and he was kind of shocked at what he saw. The footage appears to show a strange, translucent figure walking past his home. And things got spookier when Corey realized that the camera had not picked up any human movement, because when it does that, it kind of circles them to pinpoint. But during this footage, there was no anything, just the silhouette of this strange figure. So Corey was like, when I went looking outside, there was still no one there. But he came back inside and Diva was still intensely looking outside. And that's what made him check the footage. And we don't know if the creature ever went away, but hopefully Diva gets some peace. And finally for today, Canadian tourist Eloise Hospital was enjoying a lovely vacation to Los Angeles in the beginning of 2013, having chosen to stay in the infamous Cecil Hotel for its reasonable pricing while she took in the sights, including a trip to the San Diego Zoo, a taping of Conan, all of which she documented on social media. So initially she was assigned a shared room on the hotel's 5th floor, but then her roommates were like, she's kinda weird. So she was moved to a room of her own after 2 days. According to Amy Price, who was the manager of the hotel at the time of Elisa's disappearance, she was leaving notes for her roommates that said go home, go away. She would lock the door, ask for a password. She wasn't doing so well. She contacted her parents in British Columbia daily while traveling, up until the day she went poof. On January 31st of 2013, the day she was scheduled to check out of the hotel, her parents didn't hear from her, and they called the Los Angeles Police Department and made the decision to fly to LA and figure things out. So Katie Orphan, manager of the last bookstore, was the only person who saw Elisa that day, describing her as outgoing, lively, very friendly. She was buying gifts to bring home to her family, and Katie recalled a conversation they had about how heavy certain books would be to carry around for a day. Well, what happened? Police were searching the hotel, well, to the extent that they legally could, and they searched her room. They had dogs go through the building, including the rooftop, but they couldn't find her scent. Since the police didn't have, probable cause that any sort of crime had been committed, they couldn't search every room. Well, on February 6th, a week after she had been declared as missing, the police were like, okay, maybe we need to do a bit more. So they posted flyers everywhere. They posted stuff online. They were like, okay folks, help us find this girl. Interest in her disappearance increased on February 13th when the LAPD released security camera footage of her behaving erratically in the hotel elevator on the last day she was seen alive. And that was the footage we have for you today, and it went viral. During the search for her, guests at the hotel began complaining about low water pressure. Some folks were like, why is this water discolored? Also, it really tastes wrong. Well, on the morning of February 19th, Santiago Lopez, a hotel maintenance worker, found her body in one of 4 1,000-gallon tanks located on the roof that provided water to guest rooms, kitchen, coffee shop. And through the open hatch, he sadly saw her body. The tank was drained. It was cut open because apparently its maintenance hatch was too small to accommodate the equipment needed to remove the body, leading a lot of folks to wonder, how did she even get in there? Now, I'm not going to go into any graphic detail because no thank you, and I don't know why that information is even out on the internet. You can look that up yourself, but there's no evidence of anything traumatic, nothing suggesting she took her own life, no force. Toxicology tests showed traces consistent with prescription medication that was found amongst her belongings and some non-prescription stuff that was kind of common. Now, there's a very small quantity of one substance, but nothing crazy. Poor thing.
The Waverly Hills Sanatorium, now Waverly Hills Sanatorium located in Louisville, Kentucky, was open to house the growing number of tuberculosis patients. Due to a lack of medical knowledge at the time, patients were kept outside year-round for fresh air, and many had their lungs surgically removed. It is known as one of the most haunted places on Earth, with countless reports of paranormal activity. One person actually shared their experience working there and said, I worked in the sanatorium for a while, and a lot of residents always, claim to hallucinate either small dogs or, either eating ice cream before they pass away. It's always facility specific too. This place I worked at, I've had about 6 or 7 residents claim to see a little girl eating ice cream and then they pass on later that night. That seems too coincidental for me, right? The Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, now home to the WV Lobotomy Project, the psychiatric hospital was originally built for 250 patients, but the population rose to over 2,000. Conditions were atrocious and many patients, suffered. Since closing its doors, maintenance staff have reported ghosts as well as other paranormal sightings. Numerous stories and reports of ghostly phenomena have been associated with the asylum. Some of the more prominent stories include a little girl named Lily who is said to roam the halls, a man named Jesse who allegedly passed away in a bathtub there, and other accounts of strange occurrences and apparitions. Now, one person who worked there shared their story on Reddit. They said, one evening while training for the job, I was on the first floor with a couple coworkers while everyone else was touring upstairs. We were just kind of, wasting time, quietly observing the area. Light from outside was coming in through the windows, casting on the inner hall's wall. In that light, I watched the perfect silhouette of a man from head to hip walk through that light from left to right. She continued to say, in the wee hours of another night, we figured it would be cool to see what would happen if we shut all the doors of the ward. One of the doors, as I was closing it, the knob twisted in on my hand. This person actually shared several different stories of her times there and all of the paranormal stuff that actually went down. And a lot of the comment section was people just sharing their own stories of times that they took a tour there. It's still actually available for tours, so if this has piqued your interest, go book a visit if you dare. Utica State Hospital, New York's first state-run psychiatric facility built in 1843, was characterized by its grandiose revival architecture, but it was not as glamorous as it looked. It is known for the invention of the Utica crib, which is a cage-like bed that was used to restrain patients. Now, those who have explored the facility since its closing have reported hearing screams and seeing faces in the windows. People who have explored the facility both during its active years and after its closure have reported experiencing just other unsettling phenomena as well, that is basically unexplainable. One visitor said they went and heard nothing but weeping and sobbing, which is a common thing apparently. Most people have heard this as well. Now, most have said this place just feels like lingering spirits, and have felt kind of hands brush against them. Most people said they were skeptics before visiting Utica, but now they are full-blown believers. The Danvers State Hospital, built on the same grounds where the Salem witch trials occurred, Danvers State Hospital possesses a very rich history of paranormal lore. It was originally intended to treat the mentally ill with respect and compassion, but this facility quickly became overcrowded and conditions deteriorated. It is said that Arkham Asylum from Batman was based on this institution. Now, the hospital's history of mistreatment, neglect, and trauma is believed to have left a very lasting impact on the land. Even in passing, the patients were not treated with dignity, with many headstones only having numbers instead of names. Now, the immense suffering of the patients is thought to have lingered, contributing to the ghostly activity there. Visitors report a variety of paranormal experiences like screaming, banging, and crying, apparitions and disembodied voices, particularly in the cemeteries there. Now, deep black shadows and grayish mists there also. Many people have said just an overall sensation of being watched or followed. The two cemeteries on the property are considered hotspots for paranormal activity, with apparitions and voices just being the most common reports there. Alton Mental Health Center. Now, the Alton Mental Health Center in Illinois is the only facility on this list still in operation today. Once home to cold water treatment, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies, this hospital is notorious for its mistreatment of patients. Like many other hospitals of the time, the hospital was also a working farm. It was believed that the work and responsibility was necessary in the treatment of mental health crises. Now, Alton State Hospital became well known for its gorgeous grounds. Patients were allowed to care for the cattle and other animals and plants, which included a well-stocked fish pond, apple orchard, and even tobacco crops. Now, one patient even grew peanuts, which they then sold in Upper Alton. Now, in 1918, the hospital recognized the need for an attached cemetery for those who passed away and were unknown or unclaimed. Later, though, the hospital was even used to house, shell-shocked soldiers coming home from the horrors of World War I. Alton State Hospital earned a reputation, though, for mistreating patients, subjecting them to crude treatments that sometimes lasted hours or even days. Considered cutting-edge treatment at the time would be labeled as torment today. Now, in modern times, many people, have reported paranormal interactions, including two nurses who heard a voice whispering to them in the same spot. Staff and visitors report hearing unusual sounds, disembodied voices, slamming doors, and nurses on duty reported hearing a quiet voice that asked them, "Who is that?" Others report the sensation of just being touched, and one photo even showed a bright orb with a vision of a man's face in agony. So while the facility, is still operational today, ghost investigators who managed to visit are told by spirits to get out, promptly being pushed out of the room. Rolling Hills Asylum, located in upstate New York, Rolling Hills Asylum was originally known as the Genesee County Poor Farm. Established in 1827, the Genesee County Poorhouse, originally a working farm, soon became a refuge for some of society's less fortunate. Widows and orphans mingled with the mentally ill, and the unclaimed passed on were buried on the property. With over 1,700 documented demises and hundreds not recorded, it's no wonder, Haunted North America rated it as the second most haunted site in the United States. Throughout its history, it's operated as an orphanage, infirmary, sanatorium, and a nursing home. Now, thousands of unmarked bodies are buried here, and the facility has been featured on many TV shows. Today, it is part of the Haunted History Trail of New York State. One person did share their experience visiting on Reddit and said, "My fiance took me on a 6-hour unguided ghost hunt for my birthday at Rolling Hills Asylum. These photos were taken right when we began our investigation at 8:41 p.m. They have timestamps. I was walking down the first floor hallway past the infamous ramps. Out of the corner of my eye, I thought I saw someone peek their head out of a room. I checked in the room assuming it was probably someone else exploring. I was alone. I stopped and snapped some pictures after I reviewed the photos later on in the night and realized I had caught a shadow in the doorway. I saw someone poking their head out. Ooh, that gave me chills." Eloise Psychiatric Hospital. Like Rolling Hills, Eloise Psychiatric Hospital was originally a poorhouse located in Wayne County, Michigan. It grew, to become a massive complex with over 50 buildings. It housed a variety of patients, including those with mental illnesses and chronic medical conditions. The hospital was known for its often very brutal and inhumane treatments, including lobotomies, hydrotherapy, and other methods that are now considered unethical. Ghost stories have plagued its reputation, and human remains have been found in jars on the premises. Widely accepted by locals to be haunted, it was sold to basically create a new housing complex in 2018. Many people, including those who have worked at or investigated the property, have reported experiencing paranormal, experiences such as seeing ghosts, hearing whispers, witnessing objects moving on their own. So, the Eloise Asylum has been transformed now into a haunted attraction, offering tours and escape room experiences that, leverage the building's reputation for paranormal activity. The asylum is currently actually being considered for a $4 million renovation, with plans to convert it into a haunted hotel, which further emphasizes its reputation as a haunted location. The Royal Hope Hospital. Last on my list is the Royal Hope Hospital. This hospital was a Spanish military hospital in St. Augustine, Florida, in use from 1784 to 1821. One of the oldest hospitals in Florida, the Royal Hope Hospital, has been an integral part of Florida's history since its original building was constructed, all the way back in the late 1700s. St. Augustine is the oldest city in Florida, so it's no surprise that Royal Hope calls, Old City home. Now, the original building was demolished and a replica was later constructed, at which point it was discovered to be built upon a Native American burial ground. Now, there have been many sightings, of ghosts and reports of objects moving on their own. The surgeon's office is actually said to be the most haunted. This room is home to a spirit who likes to grab onto visitors' clothes and refuses to let them go. His grasp is described as basically freezing cold, hard, and forceful. One visitor stated that she could actually feel a large hand gripping her clothing, refusing to let her go. The only way to shake it off was to run out of the room as quickly as possible.
Adding to the lot is this latest viral video shared in a Facebook group called Ghosts Caught on Camera by a user named Brianna Granados on May 29th of this year. The 10-second clip shows the recording of a kitchen closed at midnight, and at the beginning of the video, everything seems normal, but suddenly a tentacle-like thing close to the camera appears on the right side of the frame. It stays on the side and moves the camera towards it. But the identity of whatever that was is not revealed. The poster of the clip goes into more detail on it in the caption. So according to her, they have experienced strange things in their mom's house since, well, as long as they can remember. We're talking loud banging noises, utensils falling, footsteps, all the usual suspects. She wrote further that they always had the feeling they weren't the only ones living there. And then recently, there's been a lot more activity. So, Mommy Dearest sets up a motion detector camera, and now we get this. The poster revealed that they recorded a few orbs, and then we've got this little, I don't know what. So adding on to the details, this was recorded after 10 o'clock, around midnight, while everybody was asleep. But then you get a notification being like, oh hey, there's movement in the living room, and then this is what we got. So then it's concluded with, does anybody have any thoughts or ideas as to what this could be? And I don't know, so let me know what you think in the comments, folks. Security cameras at the Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum, or Tala, in Lewis County, captured something that seemingly can't be explained. A video that is timestamped as of May 31st at 7:45 p.m. earlier this year shows items falling off a shelf in the Asylum gift shop. Now, this place closes at 6 p.m., so in the Facebook post, the Asylum said that during the video, the doors were locked, the windows were closed. The Tala shared the video on social media, and it went pretty viral, had about 150,000 views, and people have speculated in the comment section being like, hey, I don't know. Some folks think this is a definite sign of the paranormal. Everybody else is like, hey, great marketing stunt. The Tala, formerly known as the Old Weston State Hospital, was a treatment center for mentally ill patients. It was open from 1864 to 1994. Originally built to house about 250 people, at its peak in the 1950s, 2,400 people were housed there, and thousands are now buried in the cemetery in unmarked graves. Turns out there's a lot of speculation about possible paranormal activity at the hospital. There's ghost tours, there's private ghost hunts, and around Halloween they've got one of the most well-known haunted house experiences in West Virginia. Well, outside of the theme parks. Back in 2022, there was a news station that interviewed TikTok famous ghost hunter, Kalani Ghost Hunter, after he visited the asylum, and he's like, yeah, even if you don't believe in the paranormal, apparently this place is super creepy. Also, it's pretty cool with architecture, because it is considered the largest hand-cut masonry building in North America. But still, that many ghosts? I don't know if I want to go there or if I want to avoid it. Uploaded on September 1st, so just recently, this next footage was apparently caught on a surveillance camera directed at the corridor outside a public housing site. So if we look in the background, you can see a public bus. We loved public transport. And the video, which apparently showed a Friday 10 p.m. timestamp indicating it is a real-time recording, well, it gives us a clear view of the dim corridor devoid of any activity at night. The caption of the video says that their parcel was delivered, and then they checked, but the parcel's not there. So then they watched the CCTV playback, and they're like, oh, what's going on? And then the in-video caption added, please tell me it isn't just me seeing things. So as the video continues to play, strange things begin to get captured on camera. So at first, the package that was apparently delivered and left on top of a stack of recycling boxes and shoe rack suddenly fell to the ground without any reason. And then within seconds, a shadowy figure materialized, even though it was barely noticeable. Its shape could be faintly made out, but only when it moved, and it contrasted with the white wall along the corridor. So when the video is slowed down, it appears to be an apparition of sorts. But as soon as it materializes, it disappears. So after the footage appeared to distort on screen for a split second, the package on the ground zipped away from the camera, like it had a life of its own. And then the video ends. And also the account that posted the video didn't give us any other information. So, good package, good mail. Driving down an empty road at night can be creepy enough as it is. The last thing you need is a supernatural element added into the equation. But hey, who's gonna tell a ghost what to do? So one poor woman from Fresno was forced to deal with it when she appeared to have a ghostly sighting on January 22nd. Thankfully, she's got the footage, so everybody, including me, you, whoever else, we get to comment on it. So she shared the video after seeing the ghost while on her drive home from Table Mountain Casino, and she recorded it because, well, there was fog patches on the road. If you get into an accident, you want the insurance. As the car made its way around a long bend, what looked like a transparent figure suddenly appeared in the middle of the road and took a few steps towards the other lane. But then just as quickly as it appeared, the ghostly figure disappeared once again into the night as the car continued to approach. So the caption on the video reads, "Y'all see that?" The sighting took place at approximately 8:50 p.m. along Friant Road. Turns out it's a road that's been the site of numerous fatal accidents over the years. Just last year, a woman died after her car collided with a tow truck at around 1 a.m. at that crazy intersection. Also last year, a 50-year-old doctor and his wife died after crashing into a tree. So according to experts, legend suggests that the ghost of a former police officer patrols the road and pulls over cars to warn them about potential accidents. Because turns out, this officer is believed to have died on a stretch of the road in a car crash. So after people saw the footage of this latest ghostly sighting online, they had opinions. Somebody was like, yeah, that's definitely a ghost. And then somebody else was like, yeah, I've seen and heard many ghosts on that road. But then you've got the skeptics, because we gotta have some skeptics today. Somebody was like, oh, that's just dust kicked up by a breeze, or an oncoming car light reflecting fog. Look, some folks think the footage might even be edited, but like whatever the explanation for the footage, it definitely serves as a good reminder to, hey, be careful when you're driving. Just keep an eye out. Use your eyes, folks. Life after death is one of these several mysteries that have consistently generated human curiosity for like generations. Some believe in the existence of the soul after death, while others think that the soul of a dead family member wanders around, near and dear for a few days, even though there's no scientific proof. I believe it. I've had signs. CCTV footage from Michigan back in May created a stir on social media. Why? Well, we could see a ghostly figure appearing to be hovering over and staring at a sleeping person. So according to the report, a mysterious figure was captured on one of the security cameras of John Kripke, a Michigan resident, at his 100-year-old farmhouse. And the incident occurred a month following the death of the sleeping human grandfather. So the scary picture features a ghostly figure hovering over the youngest son, who's asleep on the floor. Now the figure was only captured by one of the cameras installed in the house, one that only takes snapshots instead of recording video. So Kripke shared the image on Facebook, and he's like, I don't know what I got. Literally said, I'm not sure what this is, but one of my inside cameras picked it up. Unfortunately, the inside system does not go into video mode, just snapshots of movement and sound. And to their knowledge, they've never been contacted from the other side or had any strange things happen to them in their house. But they live in a 100-year-old farmhouse, and they're like, yeah, I thought this was interesting. So once again, it hit the Facebook group, Ghost Caught on Camera, and folks have opinions. And mixed opinions at that. Well, a lot of folks believe it to be a spirit. Somebody else is like, maybe it's just a smudge on the camera. And other folks are like, maybe just get out of town. One of the users wrote that he looks like a gentleman, seeing as he's wearing a cap, and it seems like he is looking at the sun. They literally said, it looks like a gentleman, you can see the outline of his body, head, shoulders, arms, and he's wearing a hat. Another user thought it to be an elderly woman because of the kind of coat the spirit is wearing. And then somebody else was like, look, the face is so blurred, nothing is clear, what can you know? Call this first one a close encounter of the furry kind. A couple from England was left wondering if their dream home was haunted after a ghost spooked a visiting dog during the early hours of a morning, with the whole otherworldly episode caught on camera. Now Victoria Hepworth, who's 35, she was dog-sitting Kiwi, her sister's very young black Labrador, when she decided to set up a motion sensor security camera in the living room, just to make sure the little puppy was okay during the night. But what she and her fiance, Joe, saw the next morning kind of shocked them. The camera had captured Kiwi leaping all around the room in an attempt to get away from a tall, floating ghost-like figure, all in white. Now, in a statement to the media, she said it was really weird. Like, I wouldn't say either of us particularly believes in ghosts, but it looks like it's floating or hovering. And it felt very odd because it made her think, like, what has been there? The camera caught the dog, like, leaping away from this weird figure, and it was just sort of floating above the door frame. The spectre appeared to have a clearly defined head and shoulders, which cast a shadow on the wall. And Kiwi didn't bark in the night. Sorry, that was the dog. But like, when the owners were thinking back about it, they're like, maybe we heard whimpering? But she spent most of the night in her bed, sleeping. But then here you've got the dog obviously in a state of distress. Stranger still, this wasn't the first time a family pet has been spooked by unexplained activity in this 135-year-old home. So last year when this couple was moving into the space, their young nephew and his puppy had a strange reaction to something that the adults couldn't see. So back in the statement to the media, she's like, okay, remember the day we moved in, the nephew, family puppy, they were sitting about halfway up the stairs and both of them burst into tears at the exact same time. The dog started whimpering, nephew started crying, and like, once again, we all know this by this point, young ones and animals pick up on things. And that's when she was like, oh gosh, we've got a haunted house. And since the strange night with Kiwi, the couple is trying to figure out exactly what the dog camera captured, and they've done some research. What do we know about the history of the house? Well, the property was built in 1888, and the folks know who lived in it, so they're trying to, rule out, okay, you died here, you could be haunting it. You did not. You don't have a reason to. That sort of stuff. Now, apparently this experience has been out of the blue for the couple, because they hadn't really done any building work or anything that could have caused a stir in the house. And also, nobody else has a key, so we're ruling out a break-in. For now, at least. Despite all the creepiness, though, nobody's afraid. They're like, yeah, yay ghosts. I wouldn't be on the same team, but alright. She said in a statement, it's pretty cool more than anything else. I've never had a bad experience, I don't feel negatively towards the house at all. She even posted a story on Facebook. Well, that's how we got a hold of it today. And she's like, hey, what do I do? And some folks were like, well, once again, is this a burglar? But they're like, nope, it's not. But, okay. Turns out the ghost is still hanging out, so maybe they'll figure something out soon. Alright, next up, a woman claims she's captured the ghost of a soldier on camera after her dog started barking like crazy. If you're seeing a pattern of behavior, yes you are. Lael Robertson was at her home in Queensland, Australia, when her pets were unsettled by something outside. So she checked the security cameras and was astonished to spot a human-like figure lingering just a couple of meters away from her porch. The image shows what she believes to be a soldier's legs with boots on and the dark shadow of an upper body described as unnaturally disfigured. The grandmother says she's been told that soldiers mass killed indigenous folks near her house during the 1800s, and she believes one of them is haunting the property. So she posted the picture on Facebook, and a lot of folks were like, okay, yep, paranormal stuff going on. And they're like, yeah, this kind of gives me an uncomfy feeling. Well, she said, it looks like a soldier with his boots on. His legs are really clear, they're transparent, and she mentioned in the 1800s there was that mass killing event, so it could be one of those, and she's like, my dogs usually tell me if something's around that shouldn't be in the yard, and they were going nuts when she went to check the footage. When she saw it, she was like, oh boy, what an image we've caught. So she's been trying to put what's been happening into the paranormal, and everybody was like, nope, you're a liar. So she's like, look at the evidence, folks, it kind of is paranormal. Now, she doesn't know how they just got a photo of it and not a video because it is a motion sensor camera, but it just got a snapshot. And it's taken her a while to get used to having ghostly things happening, but here she is. Turns out she moved into the house 4 years prior to the event, and paranormal activity began 2 years after, with knocking on the windows, pictures falling off the walls. Pretty typical. Now, the Facebook post in question has racked up more than 450 reactions, 80 comments, probably more. And the caption read, it's amazing what the full moon brings out in your backyard. And she describes what you can see in the photo, and she's like, yeah, it's a spirit. Kind of creepy. One person commented, now that's something paranormal. And somebody was like, best evidence I've seen on this page. The size comparison of the figures to the height of the porch is crazy. So unnaturally slender and disfigured, and it gives you a very unwell sensation. And somebody else was like, yeah, bad vibes all around. And after seeing the photo, I'm like, yeah, also, no. Get it away. Get it away. A spooky picture of a ghost at the Abbey Hotel was caught on camera. Now, a boy snapped the image of the spooky face peering outside of one of the building's windows during a visit to the attraction with his family. Oliver and his sister Rebecca visited the Abbey for the Illuminate Light Trail event before Christmas of last year with their granddad Eric. Now, Grandpa said that he'd been telling them ghost stories for a long time, telling them to look out for ghosts on the trail, and Oliver took the challenge seriously. He carefully checked each window of the building, and what do you know? He found something. In one of the first floor windows of the building, he saw a woman standing very still. He said she looked as though she was wearing Victorian-style clothes with a white cap and an apron over a black dress. And he said, when I saw this strange figure looking out of the window, staring at the garden, he took a photo on his mom's phone, which he was using to take pictures of the pretty lights. He zoomed in as far as he could, and she was much clearer to his eye than in the photo. So Oliver then called his mom and sister over to look, but then as he did so, the figure didn't move, but she disappeared completely. So, the youngster and his granddad researched the Abbey ghosts online when they got home, and they found the sad story of Matilda, a former maid at the Abbey when it was the home of the Craven family. Now, it's not the first time that it's been claimed that Matilda has been captured on camera. Paranormal investigators who visited the Abbey in 2018 claimed to have seen a great number of apparitions, including capturing an image of Matilda. So the Abbey has a long history and was famously linked to the gunpowder plot, as Robert Catesby and other anti-establishment conspirators planned to kidnap Princess Elizabeth, who was staying at the Abbey under the supervision of the king's close friend. Now, in the 12th century, it was the largest and most influential monastery in the area. But after all of those went kaput, the ownership was kinda hot potatoed around. John Harrington bought the property in 1581, and it was later acquired by the Craven family in 1622. Now, it stayed with them for like 300 years, and then the Abbey was extensively developed, with a number of buildings added. The last Lord Craven died in 1921, and the Countess was like, yeah, we're selling this off. So, City Council took over ownership in 1964, parks were opened to the public in 1966, and the hotel opened in 1995. I like covering my bases. Alright folks, this next paranormal footage shows a ghost spooking folks at a 300-year-old pub. A bottle of booze was spotted flying off a shelf behind the bar and plummeted to the floor. No workers were near the shelf, which was very well screwed in at the White Swan Inn, and it caused spillage down the back of the till, while the rest of the bottle stood perfectly in place. In the footage, a worker can be seen running to the scene of the spooky accident from the opposite direction, proving nobody was around when it happened. The manager said the bar staff was so creeped out afterwards. They felt the chills of the aftermath of this booze-destroying ghost. She's like, also, we now have 2 pieces of footage showing ghosts. We have no idea who it is. Maybe it's someone who just doesn't like booze. Right, I forgot. This is the second incident. The first one, in February 2022, bar manager confronted a group of guys because they were spilling drinks on the floor. But none of them had touched it. They were like, nope, not us, not us. And what do you know? The security camera footage proved that they were telling the truth. It shows a full pint glass sitting on a table and suddenly toppling over without anybody touching it. Now, the bar manager's been working at this pub for over 20 years, and apparently there's been up to several unexplained incidents over that time. She often feels like somebody's walking past, and other staff have complained that they feel like they're being watched when nobody's around. One time the manager moved out of the way of a dog to find out there was no dog. And finally, producers of the British ghost hunter show Most Haunted, well, they spent about 17 years trying to capture footage of a proper real spectre, and as of 2017, it seems like they found one. Members of the TV crew were reduced to fearful tears after they spotted and managed to get on camera a transparent ghostly figure ascending some stairs at an abandoned 17th century mansion in Yorkshire. The spine-tingling clip shows what appears to be a paranormal figure walking slowly down a dark corridor at Wentworth House in South Yorkshire. The TV show was at the mansion, investigating reports of a ghostly presence inside the stable block, following dozens upon dozens of unexplained sightings. Investigators Carl Beatty and Stuart Torvell managed to record the figure before chasing it down the hallway as it disappeared from view. Now, the host, Yvette, was left sobbing after watching the clip and said the video was the show's most groundbreaking footage to date. She's like, look, in all the years we've been doing this, we've always wanted to capture a ghost on camera. We've got so many different types of phenomena, objects moving on their own, voices, but this is the first time we've caught a man walking. It was only when we edited it that I saw it, and I just burst into tears. I was just sobbing. Which, hey, good for you. Let me know in the comments, and welcome to the top 5 scary sounds from haunted forests caught on camera. Number 5, Elfin Forest in California. California tends to be a spooky place as it is, and the community of Elfin Forest sounds like it belongs in the world of Tolkien, even though it lies just southwest of Escondido in San Diego County. Yep, I totally had to call up the friend who used to live in California for that pronunciation. Thanks, Lore, and if I got that wrong, pardon me, I'm exhausted. How fitting then that this forest is crawling with tall tales, myths, and stories of haunted spirits and goblins. It's allegedly home to a sect of psychics and other occult practitioners that dwell in the woods. They like to talk to visitors about the many paranormal influences on the earth, and many of the stories of the forest are preserved by them. We do have some footage from YouTubers known as Zero Occupancy Urbex, where they captured some of the creepy sounds that have been known to come out of said forest. Now, while I'm not sure which tale of the forest those noises came from, let's explore explore the legends together. It is told that many years ago, a family of 3 went through the woods exploring and having fun. It was a difficult period of time, perhaps more violent, and the neighbors weren't surprised when the family didn't return for days. Finally, just as their friends began to be concerned, a lone individual ascended a hill and stumbled down. Even, with all the grime and ripped clothes, as well as a sight of sheer dread in her eyes, people identified her as the family's, woman, the wife, the mother. According to her, her husband and son were dead after a group of men had sprung out of nowhere and attacked the family. She was able to flee the crime scene, but all the people she cared about were ripped apart. Her dread in the eyes faded over time, but a cold, steely rage took place. That's scary, trust me. The woman seemed to transform into a different person as she spent her days reading old books with weird characters and her nights meeting strangers from local and faraway groups. She was finally ready, she said. She entered the wilderness dressed entirely in white and was never seen again. Oh, I love a good white lady. Hikers and campers in the forest have reported witnessing the ghostly form of a woman floating on the ground as the years and decades have passed. It moves amazingly quickly at times and excruciatingly slowly at others. Attempting to communicate with her is pointless since she's simply gonna vanish, yet everyone who's met her did so before she could pack her belongings and leave. In the so-called Spook Canyon location, there was once a Romani colony who devoted their time to what many would consider dark pursuits in search of connection and seclusion. So they became friends with other local communities over time and shared some of their activities. They said that dozens of young people from other communities were hastily buried on the slopes surrounding the canyon, and they wanted to converse with the dead. And apparently, the mission succeeded because several glimpses of groups of young people running and playing in the early hours of the morning were soon recorded by a local spiritualist. A fair, English guy wearing an old stove cap and swinging a lantern in a boisterous manner is another unique occurrence. So, Harmony Grove is the name of the former Romani community today. It is still a gathering place, like I said, for occultists and paranormalists, as well as ghost hunters. The original Romani people sadly clashed with the residents of neighboring towns, causing an enraged mob to chase them away, and several of them were slain while the rest fled. They cursed the forest as a whole and incited their spiritual allies to, engage in wrath, and they fled. One of them is alleged to have been left behind and is still alive today. She assumes the form of a black cloaked woman riding a black steed. Now, visitors entering the forest may experience a shiver, which is an unspoken sign of the witch, and according to legend, if a bear returns to the jungle, you're not gonna leave. The witch will mount her stallion and focus her eyes on them, killing them instantaneously. So let me know in the comments, out of all those ghosties, which one do you think made those noises? Look, I'm betting on the witch. I always bet on the white lady. Number 4, the Hoia Forest in Romania. So this forest in Transylvania has been called one of the world's most haunted places after a series of paranormal activities and strange occurrences. Granted, being located in Transylvania, home to all things ooky spooky vampire gothic, probably only helps with the rumors. There have been many unsettling tales that have been told of the Romanian forest for hundreds of years, making it nearly impossible to separate fact from fiction. Popular YouTube channel Overnight decided to spend a night in the forest, and we do have snippets of their video, and hopefully you can hear the audio. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what I heard. Located in northwestern Romania, it's known as the Bermuda Triangle of Romania, since strange disappearances are said to have occurred here. Like a shepherd who's said to have disappeared with a flock of 200 sheep, and a young girl who disappeared here only to emerge 5 years later without having aged. However, one of the strangest events that happened in the forest comes from the tale of a woman who disappeared with a 15th century coin in her pocket. After a significant amount of time had passed, the woman returned as if no time had passed with the same coin. Its reputation as a home for the paranormal and possibly alien encounters is heightened by its eerie atmosphere of twisted skeletal trees that span across 700 acres. Now, this was due to the reported UFO sightings that were famously photographed in the 1960s by biologist Alexander Sift, which showed flying objects and gave the forest a reputation as a place for strange and unexplainable events. Even the forest trees themselves hold an enigma, as these 200-year-old trees seem to be young, and most of them are twisted at the trunk or unusual in shape. Most of the paranormal activity seems to be concentrated in a particular part of the forest, which is free of vegetation and formed into a perfect circle. Now, the soil of this vegetation-free area has been tested, and no anomalies were found that would prevent the growth of any plant life. Visitors often report intense feelings of anxiety and the feelings of being constantly watched. The forest website even warns it, and the locals tend to stay away because they fear that if they enter, they're not going to find their way out. There are many first-hand reports from people who visited the forest and left with strange symptoms, which range from a mild case of unease to physical symptoms such as severe rashes, headaches, and even burns. No thanks, I've already got weird bruises enough as it is. Thanks, ADHD. Number 3, the ghosts of Yellowstone National Park. Yep, a ghost story. I know, shocker, it's me. Ghostly figures like to appear in the park when the weather turns cold, especially when temperatures can plummet to -30. As somebody who's been in a cold room that was occupied by ghosts ghosts before and has also experienced being in temperatures around -40, I can both validate this statement and shiver at the memory. Now, before we get into legends that could possibly be the reason for the noises, I'll let the clip play.
What does it sound like to you?
I know, chilling, right? So our first ghostie that this could possibly be from is Maddie Culver, a sweet lady who passed while giving birth on March 2nd of 1889 at the now gone Farmhouse Hotel, which was once located several miles north of the Old Faithful Inn. And nervously, she likes to flutter about, heartbroken over not living to see, well, her offspring grow up. When Mrs. Culver passed away, the hotel's grounds were too frozen to dig her grave, so her body was placed in 2 pickle barrels and buried in a snowdrift until spring thawed. Today, not far from her grave, is Dead Maiden Spring, which seems fitting and a bit of a morbid way. According to Lee Whittlesley, a park historian, the grave was later fenced and maintained by the wife of a park concessionaire, and Maddie's 18-month-old young was sent to live with relatives. We also have L.R. Piper, a cashier from the First National Bank of St. Mary's, Ohio, who on July 30th of 1890 stepped out of the now-gone Fountain Hotel to enjoy an after-dinner cigar and vanished. Well, if we needed an additional public service announcement that cigars can be bad for your health, voila, folks. U.S. Army troops stationed in Yellowstone at the time searched for a month for Piper, and his brother-in-law spent the month of September that year looking for him. And at one point, he even slept under the stars, hoping that, the coyote howls would help him find stuff. It is believed that Piper walked out into the night and inadvertently stumbled into one of the many hot springs that are located nearby. Now, 2 of the hot springs there, Gentian Pool and Deep Blue Geyser, are very large and very deep, and it's believed that a search of them might yield the petrified bones. Charles Phillips is also somebody that could be doing the haunting and the noisies. He was a ranger stationed at Old Faithful during the winter of 1926 to 27 and passed after eating water hemlock, which he took for wild parsnip. According to Death in Yellowstone, the ranger's body was found on the floor of the ranger station. Investigators found that he had apparently come out of the bedroom into the kitchen and fell forward, hitting his head above his left eye on the table. Now, the dirt on his hands indicated that he had crawled on the floor for a while, probably in agony, and he exhibited the retching and frothing at the mouth, which are characteristics of hemlock poisoning. Delicious. Number 2, Witchwood Forest in the United Kingdom. So more than a few visitors to Witchwood Forest, a former royal hunting ground, have reported feeling invisible hands touch their shoulders or hearing the thunder of invisible horses. Yep, more footage, I promise. I do my best to keep things credible around here. So this comes from popular YouTube channel 333 Ghost Hunting, which I have to admit, it's a pretty funny and clever name. Very good reference to the witching spiritual hour. It's enough to, make your spine tingle and So this clip is enough to make your spine tingle at the slightest rustle in the leaf. So, who could it be? The most compelling is the case of Amy Robsart, the wife of the Earl of Leicester, who mysteriously passed of a broken neck. Now later, while the Earl was hunting in the woods, his late wife's ghost confronted him and predicted that he would join her in 10 days, which he did after suddenly falling ill. Now, anybody who meets the ghost, it said their similar fate's gonna happen. Good luck! Number 1, Pine Barrens, New Jersey. So, anybody want to guess what this forest is home to? Think Jersey. Yep, the devil himself. The forest floor of New Jersey's extensive pine barrens are sandy, acidic, and nutrient poor. And yet, the pine barrens are filled with plant life, including pine trees that thrive on forest fires in order to thrive. That's a heck of a sentence. So, to understand the legend of the Jersey Devil, first you must understand his birthplace. It is a remote region extending 1,700 square miles across southeastern New Jersey. It is actually a giant aquifer with dense strands of white cedar. Inside, the air is calm, still, and cool, but the shadows are heavy. The cedar stands throughout the swamp, stain the streams red with tannin. Now, one area of stunted trees is called Pygmy Forest. While many consider it a barren wilderness, 27 varieties of orchids actually grow there. So, in the 18th century, the area came to be populated with outcasts of one kind or another, and over time, its residents seemed almost, to cultivate a hillbilly-like backwardsness that some believe is intended to keep outsiders outside. And that, my friends, is how it became the home of one of the most famous cryptids of all time, a monster with, a ghost head, bat wings, and cloven hoof. The audio we have is from user Howie here on YouTube, and just like the other entries on today's list, I have no idea how to describe it, so listen for yourself. Seriously, it gave me chills. So glad I wasn't listening to that while home alone.
5. The Spiritual Stream. Coming up first on our list today is this footage that has been setting people's minds ablaze. Maybe it's one of the most compelling pieces of supernatural footage on the internet recently, and it's only number 5. So, you gotta imagine this is gonna be a good list, and I'm not being sensationalist in any way. Anyway, take a look at this. A group of friends and streamers had been watching a sports stream together, and after the stream had wrapped, they're getting into the post-commentary section of things, discussing their thoughts, theories, when things took a turn for the supernatural. Streamer Chris D noticed a dark shadow passing from the right side to the left side of his webcam before going out of frame. Not even half a second later, Chris turned around deeply aware that there was something that had passed behind him. Chris was terrified, asking if he'd just seen a ghost. Chris's up-close encounter made his friends into a believer. I mean, yeah, if I think there was a video of one of my friends having a ghost walk right behind him, I'd probably start believing too. The host of the podcast running the stream, J. Rob, claimed that he was always skeptical of the idea that the supernatural was real, but quoting, "After what I witnessed while streaming on my channel, it forever changed my belief." And this incident might actually have changed the friends far more than just believing, and might have given him a bit of spiritual guidance, if you'll pardon the pun, as they've changed their path from sports podcasting to supernatural huntings, as the boys are rebranding as the Ghost Brothers and are going to stream Chris's house directly to see if they can catch anything else on camera. We'll definitely see, and we'll be keeping an eye on them, and hopefully we'll see them again in another Top 5 Scary video. Top 5 even scarier poltergeist sightings. But if you can't wait for those guys to start getting some ghost content, we've already got some ghost videos right here. You don't gotta go anywhere. Click on through on Top 5 Scary and find something to like. Hit subscribe. Make sure you hit that little bell as well so you don't miss a scream. But you gotta do that at the end of this video for me, would you kindly? Because I got 4 more pieces of poltergeist footage coming up for you right about now. Number 4, no strings attached. I think most of us could probably agree that regardless of if a spirit or poltergeist is possessing a puppet or not, a puppet is terrifying. I just don't think any good can ever come from teaching a piece of wood to talk. Whether it's the uncanny valley that makes them so disturbing, a biological impulse to make us recognize that that's not a real person, or maybe just a general reasonable disdain for the practice of ventriloquism, puppets are scary, The Goosebumps dummy, movie star Annabelle, that freaky little puppet freak from Saw who loves playing all those funny little games? Well, the truth is always scarier than fiction, I find, and in this next clip we've got a true haunted puppet on our case and sealed away in a case. Take a look at this footage that has people's jaws hanging open. Did you see it? It's kind of hard to miss. It looks like this dummy is keen to give a performance without any help from anybody and has learned to move its mouth on its own. Is something possessing it? Is there a malevolent spirit inside this puppet, or is it just going solo? Knowing its history makes things a lot more interesting. This doll is named Mr. Fritz, and it was recovered from a World War II prison camp and eventually would make its way into the hands of a private collector in the UK. The new owner, one Michael Diamond, claims that several times he noticed the glass display would open on its own during the night. Now, if I got a haunted doll from a World War II prison camp and the glass case that I was putting it in kept accidentally opening on its own, I would probably burn my house down, change countries, but he filmed it for a few nights and caught footage of the seemingly possessed dummy talking. His solution was to wrap it in chains and keep a blanket over it. Again, I would probably bury it, cast it into the ocean, I don't know, pour salt on it, burn it, but hey, you do you, and I'm glad you're doing it because we got footage of it. Mr. Diamond says he's not worried, saying, "My wife and daughter both hate it, and I understand why. I'm not intimidated by it." Now, this obviously could be fake, some special effects, some fishing wire, I'm sure, but I'm inclined to believe this one is real, and maybe that's just because I don't want to mess with this puppet at all. Number 3, TikTok's poltergeist pair. Coming up next on our list of poltergeist sightings caught on camera is this TikTok account, Lainey and Ben. You might have even come across them if you're particularly big on supernatural stuff on TikTok. They're a pair of teachers who've been viral for the haunted house they live in. Take a look at some of the footage captured from their account. Now, Lainey said she hadn't believed in spirits, but had hoped that she had, because after her mother's passing, she started to truly believe when she said her mother came to her in a dream and told her, "I'm here to tell you I'm okay and I'm happy." She would meet her partner Ben at Teachers College, and the two of them married quickly, buying a house in the summer of 2018. Not relatable at all. They moved into their house, and shortly after moving in, found odd noises keeping them up at night. Footsteps on stairs, creaky voices, until it started to ramp up, with them claiming that they were hearing voices calling out to them during the night, whispering their names. They claimed after this first incident with the voices, the hauntings would then become much more intense, objects shifting, being tossed tossed across the room, coming into a room and seeing a chair stacked, cabinets flying open, drawers launched around. They say they had a friend house sitting for them while they were away, and within a few hours the friend had called to return the keys and said he was done. Allegedly, while sleeping, he felt the duvet get torn off of him and thrown across the room, and that it was just too much to deal with. Honestly, fair. I am the exact same way when I wake up, and that is regardless of if a ghost is touching me or not. Now, despite the fact that the two seem to be living in the Amityville horror house, the couple enjoy it and say they love their spirits and love being part of the paranormal community. Now, is that because these are benevolent, friendly spirits that are easy to get along with and have exposed the pair to a world they didn't know, or do the pair just enjoy the fame and success that comes from posting the clips to TikTok? But I mean, come on, could it be faked? Do you really think anyone would go on the internet and fake things about the supernatural for clicks and ad money? Do you think anyone would do that? Number 2, the Deerpark Demon. Coming up next is going to be this Irish school that has a little too much school spirit. Huh? Instead of a student body, they got a disembody? Do I have a third pun? No. On October 1st at around 3 a.m., the witching hour, surveillance cameras captured these spooky happenings at Deerpark Public in Cork, Ireland, weeks before Halloween. We see the lockers shake, the doors slam, and a sign flopping over, all without a string or person in sight. Now, some online had questioned whether or not the footage could have been doctored or edited in any way, or perhaps it was a hoax with a green screen, and that's certainly possible, but I think you should look up how much funding any public school receives, because they really don't have a lot of room in the budget for fake ghost videos. This footage was unsettling the staff, with the principal baffled at what had happened, wondering if the footage was somehow evidence of a very complicated senior prank. A prank perhaps, but one done by poltergeists, not students. Allegedly, this wasn't the first time something supernatural has been reported on in Deerpark either. The principal, one Aaron Wolf, said that staff in the past have complained about inexplicable happenings around the school, from minor things like the hallways being supernaturally cold to more extreme things like hearing the ghostly wail of a banshee through the halls late at night. Of course, that could just as easily be a student getting back their test results and discovering they are not making honor roll this year. The school was built on a site known as the Green Gallows, a 19th century execution ground for criminals. Is it possible that the lingering spirit of some of these former criminals are wandering the halls, just looking for a bit of post-mortuary education? I'm not sure, and I'm not looking to find out anytime soon. I graduated twice, not looking to go back to school a third time. Number 1, the Hillview Haunting. And finally, rounding out our list today of supernatural occurrences on camera is going to be this clip I've dubbed the Hillview Haunting, what with it occurring at the Hillview Manor in Newcastle, Pennsylvania. It's been a nursing home, but above all else and beyond, it's a haunted house. The spot is fairly well known locally for being a haunted destination for supernatural enthusiasts, even offering tickets for overnight stays for amateur ghost hunters to try and find the truth. And that's exactly what had happened to an anonymous Redditor who posted this shocking footage of her and her husband and the rest of the tour being charged at by some unknown force. And this footage is relentless, let me tell you. Now, the Redditor blessed us with a little backstory, saying she had bought the tickets for the tour with her husband for his birthday as a gift, and immediately said the two of them began to feel uncomfortable as they disembarked on the tour. Long, empty hallways in the dark, droning sounds, and ghost stories told from the tour guide all contributed to a sense of dread. Her husband had told her that the entire time they'd been walking through the manor, he had felt something grabbing onto his arm, as if it was like a spider web that had been rubbing against, and whenever he'd adjust, he'd find nothing there. Now, eventually the tour made its way to a hallway on the 3rd floor, and when they started to hear footsteps by the nurse's station that grew louder, heavier, they found the walls and floors shaking, and something sent her husband flying. The two of them ran to the office, shaking with pure fear. They looked over the surveillance footage to try and determine what had happened, but all they were left with was more questions and what was seemingly an invisible presence knocking them all over. So what do you think? It seems pretty difficult to fake whatever had transpired here. I don't know how much you know about pratfalls, but they're not terribly easy to land, not terribly easy to make yourself fall on command. Do you think that was really a poltergeist caught on camera? Let me know down below, because I think this is one of the spookier pieces of paranormal footage I've seen in at least 30 seconds. Number 5, the All Fours Ghost. How did we ever find cryptids? and other paranatural beings before we started putting cameras on every street corner and inside everyone's pocket. If for nothing else, the surveillance state era has made it significantly easier to find weird footage of things running around in the dark. Take a look at this creepy footage posted to Reddit, appropriately enough on the Skinwalker subreddit. Someone described it as a skinwalker caught on camera, but really it's just something weird, so it could be anything. Let's roll it. Pretty darn creepy, huh? At first glance, you'd be forgiven for thinking it's a dog or a demon monster or something, and it's only when you brave up and are willing to take another watch at it that you realize what you've been looking at is a human running on all fours perfectly like an animal. This is one of the freakiest things I have seen in a good while, and I literally exclusively watch scary content online all day for my job. This actually made me recoil. I've never seen a human being move like that. Well, allegedly a human, that's why we're including it in this video. Could this be a human? Or is this another being altogether? Some powerful shapeshifter caught mid-transformation? Or is this just someone who had a really long night and is on one or all of the substances? Now, I did my best to try and find what I could about this bizarre encounter. Did a little digging. A few commenters on the original thread mentioned that this particular instance is more well known in Mexico, with locals saying she's known as the dog woman, and others saying that this is a well-known person who suffers from a degenerative syndrome called Unner-Tan syndrome. That's a gene disorder that can cause affected individuals to walk on all fours. I only did about 15 seconds of research of that, so don't trust me too much. If we have any viewers in Mexico who can illuminate us a little bit and who know about this particular woman, please sound off in the comments. We would love to know. But until then, we just have to speculate, so let me know what you think. And if you're looking for way more creepy clips of strange ghosts and unexplained things on security cameras, oh, we have got so much of that and then some. Make sure you hit subscribe, please ring that little bell so you don't miss a single video of ours, but do that at the end of this video, okay? Because I got way more strange things caught on camera for you. Number 4, security guard. Our next clip up today was also posted to Reddit and is a delightfully strange one. It's CCTV footage of a security guard working in Buenos Aires at a hospital late at night around 3 a.m. Now traditionally that is thought of as the witching hour, but you know, no big deal or anything. Anyway, let's take a quick little look at the clip and see what we can see. We can see the security guard get up from his desk, clipboard in hand, opening the bell, even going so far as bringing in a wheelchair for a guest who doesn't appear to exist. Watch this clip as many times as you'd like. You'll never see who he's letting in because they just don't seem to exist at all. It's unsettling. Now let's take a look at this. The Scully approach is that this could just be the musings of a very bored security guard who's working the graveyard shift at a hospital doing anything to make himself entertained. I've worked long night shifts by myself. I would do anything to pass the time. I do weird stuff when nobody's looking, so I totally get it. Now the Mulder approach, and that's why we're here, because we're ready to believe, is that this could be any number of supernatural things. A ghost? Some sort of demonic entity possessing the security guard and making him open the door. The way the guard does it all so routinely, as if he doesn't even realize something is so wrong, is unsettling. I think that's the word for it. There's something unsettling about this clip that's hard to describe. The clip went fairly viral for its bizarre nature, and the hospital clarified that the guard never registered a patient to enter. So either it was a prank or the demon just didn't give him enough information and just waltzed on in. Let me know what you all think. Is this a bored prankster or something supernatural sneaking on into our world? Number 3, the Ghost Hotel. Our next clip coming up is, well, it's this one that's made the rounds lots over the internet and the more paranormal, spookier sides of things. You'll be able to see why fairly easy, as this clip is baffling and one of the more compelling pieces of paranormal activity caught on camera that I have seen in at least the last 3 to 4 minutes. The clip was submitted by the hotel security manager of the Wingate Hotel in Illinois. According to the manager, guests staying at the hotel were complaining about strange happenings going on the second floor. These guests were reporting everything from noise complaints, scratching, changes in temperature, loud disruptions like banging on the walls, scratching, and loud screaming, all particularly emanating from room 209. There was no history of anything suspicious happening in room 209 until this incident, you know? No whole family got killed or something, not a history of demons in there. This is the footage that was recorded of the security guard sent to deal with what was happening in room 209. The dispatcher sounds scared, telling the guard to wait for the police to arrive before entering the dreaded 209. After a brief entrance, the guard returns visibly shaken by what he'd seen. He demands they call the police immediately, and that while there was no one inside room 209, all of the furniture had been flipped upside down and stacked. I've got to say, it's always very refreshing when you watch a paranormal clip like this or something, and someone reacts normally, which is to say, getting the heck out of the building. Number 2, the ghost alarm. We got ourselves another clip from the ghost subreddit. Hey, what can I say? If you want to look at ghosts, it's a pretty good place to go. There's quite a lot of ghosts already there. This one was posted to us from user Reman8 with the caption, "Something set off the security footage on one of our properties. Nothing was stolen. This is the footage." We'll play it for you now. Pop those peepers wide on open. You're gonna need to look real closely for this, okay? Take a look at this spine-tingling footage. Did you see it? This is one of those ones I had to watch twice before it popped out at me, and then I nearly leapt out of my chair. So don't feel bad if you need to scoot back 30 seconds to try and catch that one again. It's very, very slight. At first glance, it might seem like nothing is there, but when you really pay attention, you can see the faintest silhouette of a figure creeping through in the background, seemingly walking through thin air, barely able to make it out. I know logically this is probably just a camera glitch or something, but that ghostly outline of a person is enough to send a shiver up and down my back. The poster claims that the front door to the property was opened, and that's what triggered the security footage. Well, who could have done that if not for this malevolent spirit? One commenter suggested it was possible that energy dispelled by the ghost could have been what set off the alarm and opened the door, and that's why it looks so spectral and ethereal on the footage, just this sort of like translucent shimmering figure shape. What do you think, internet comment hive mind? Is this some real proof of something from another world walking into ours, or is this just some dust and light hitting the camera weird and our eyes are filling in the details we wish we were seeing? Please do let us know down below. I did a little digging on it myself, and the Redditor returned to the same thread after a whole year and reported that nothing else like this had ever happened in that year, and that he hadn't found any evidence of spirits in the local area or anything strange happening in the house before they moved in. So maybe it was just a one-off haunting, but still, one haunting is more than enough for me. Very, very unnerving. At number 1, the ghost office. Coming in at the final spot for today on horrible spectral encounters caught on camera is this creepy footage from a Manchester office. Now, yeah, an office, that's already kind of creepy and liminal enough and scary, but that's not what we're talking about. The footage is the actual footage security guards were flicking through on the early hours of November 1st. It looks like a regular old office, if not a bit drab, but then the Skinamarink style horror starts to turn from regular boring security detail to full-blown horror movie at one key moment. At 3 a.m., wouldn't you notice, the witching hour, things start to get weird. All the computers in the office flicker on at the exact same time, all the chairs start to get thrown around, cabinets opening when they shouldn't, objects rattling off as if a massive spiritual disturbance is happening. Now, it's more than just a little bit too perfect that all of this supernatural stuff happened at 3 a.m., which is sometimes referred to as the witching hour, for the belief that it's the time of the day when the veil between the spirit world and our world is weakest, and spirits are free to cross on over to wreak a little havoc in ours. I've got to say, if this is faked somehow, this is a superbly impressive fake with an impressive amount of effort put into it. More effort than I've seen in most horror movies, and a good budget. Whoever was faking this had dedication, time, and a really good sense of atmosphere. But at the same time, it's so perfect a clip. I don't know. I have to ask myself if it's real. Would ghosts really be so punctual to arrive at 3 exactly? Would a ghost even need to get somewhere on time? You've got all the time in the world. And if I had all the time of the afterlife, I certainly wouldn't be rushing towards an office. I get enough office time in my regular life.
Kicking off our list, we have Claude Monet in 5th place. Yep, the famed artist himself. If you're not familiar with his work, I'd recommend looking up Impression Sunrise, which is the painting that gave the name to the French Impressionism art movement, or his Water Lily series. Most of his work Deerpark is made up of stunning landscapes, but I think Woman with a Parasol is my personal favorite of his. But you all came here for a ghosty moment, not for me to wax poetic about art, so let's hop into it. In 2015, the Cleveland Museum of Art was installing a new temporary exhibit from the Royal Academy of Arts in London titled Painting the Modern Garden, Monet to Matisse. The director of architecture was taking photographs to make sure everything looked, according to plan, when she noticed a figure showing up on an empty balcony. The photo in question shows a man with a long white beard, sporting a hat like one Monet was fond of wearing, and looking very much like the artist who was fond of painting his gardens at Giverny. Oh, forgot to mention, Monet was a very passionate horticulturalist on top of being a fantastic painter. The public communications associate who made a public statement on the photograph, Kelly Nataro, has claimed time and time again that the photo is not a hoax, not retouched in any way, and that many more sightings of Monet have been reported since by guests visiting the exhibit. The museum is home to other ghosties as well, with stories told of a little boy running through the gallery dressed in fashions from 1916 and a man in gray staring at the portrait of Jean Gabriel before disappearing into it. Night guards have reported their flashlights flickering on and off in the West Wing, and there's a mirror where visitors report seeing a man standing, but when they turn around, no one's there. Fascinating to me that Monet chose a small museum in Cleveland to appear in, and not the Musée in Paris that's, dedicated to only his art. Maybe he felt cozy amongst all the other ghosts. Or perhaps he's traveling the world to make sure his art is safe? Let me know in the comments what you think. In fourth place, we have the Grey Lady of Hampton Court Palace. I guess I should probably introduce her formally to begin with, Dame Sybil Penn. She was a servant at Hampton Court to 4 Tudor monarchs, being the nurse of Prince Edward and also Elizabeth I, nursing her through smallpox before succumbing to it herself in 1562. Sightings of her ghost began being reported in 1829, when the church of the palace was rebuilt and her tomb was moved. I'd probably be ticked as well if I had been resting for that long and then was disturbed. I'm pretty cranky as a person if you wake me up from a deep sleep. Trust me. Once upon a time, I accidentally roared at a friend who was trying to wake me up. Not my finest moment. Anywho, soon after being so rudely disturbed from her grave, strange noises of a person working a spinning wheel were heard through a wall at Hampton Court, which led to the discovery of a previously unknown chamber containing an antique spinning wheel. My inner fairy tale nerd is screaming right now about Charles Perrault. Don't mind me. The photograph we're specifically discussing today was taken in 2015 by Holly Hampshire, age 12, who thought she was taking, a fairly routine picture of her cousin Brooke McGee, also 12, during a day out at the 16th century home while in the King's apartments. Just gotta capture those selfies. The girls didn't realize what they had encountered at the time and only made the discovery when looking through their photos a day later. Okay, now before anyone calls bull on this, it's pretty dang realistic. I know I still haven't looked through every photo I took on my most recent vacation, and those photos are almost a week old now. The photograph shows a tall woman with dark flowing hair, cloaked in a full-length black and gray gown. This is the only time someone has been able to successfully capture her on camera. She's been spotted many times over the years. Just don't confuse her with any of Henry VIII's wives, since they're also quite fond of haunting the place on a regular basis, with Jane Seymour and Catherine Howard being the most commonly spotted. Jane can be found on the Silver Stick Stairs, which once led to the room where she met her unfortunate end after giving birth to the perfect heir, while wild child Catherine can be heard screaming through the haunted gallery, where it's believed that she broke free of her guards after her initial arrest in a failed attempt to reach her husband to plead for her life. Hey, maybe the Now Museum should play host to a touring cast of 6 to see what'll happen. I'd be willing to fly out for that. In third place, we have the Brown Lady. I swear this isn't going to turn into a list of spooky ladies identified by the color of their gowns. I promise. According to legend, the Brown Lady of Raynham Hall is the ghost of Dorothy Walpole, the sister of Robert Walpole, who is generally regarded as the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. She was the second wife of Charles Townshend, who was notorious for his violent temper. The story says that when Charles discovered that his wife had committed adultery with Lord Wharton, he punished her by locking her in her rooms in the family home, which is, you guessed it, Raynham Hall. She remained there until her death in 1726 from smallpox. The first recorded claim of a sighting of the ghost was by Lucia C. Stone during a gathering at Christmas of 1835 when she observed the Brown Lady because of the dated dress she wore. The following evening, another guest claimed to have seen the Brown Lady again, later reporting that on this occasion he was drawn to the specter's empty eye sockets, which were dark in the glowing face. These sightings led to some staff permanently leaving Raynham Hall, and you know what? Valid. The next reported sighting was made in 1836 by Captain Frederick Marriott, a good friend of Charles Dickens and the author of a series of popular sea novels. It is said that Frederick specifically requested that he spend the night in the most haunted room of Raynham Hall to prove his theory that the haunting was caused by local smugglers to keep people away from the area, and not by an actual ghost. The first 2 nights he slept with a personal safety bang bang device under his pillow and encountered nothing. If you didn't get what I'm referring to, just Ask someone in the comments. On the third night, his final evening, two young men knocked at his door very late at night as he was undressing to go to bed and asked him to step over to their room at the other end of the corridor and give them his opinion on a collector's item that had just arrived. As they were leaving the room, he brought his personal safety device, joking that it was in case he met the brown lady. When the inspection of the item was over, the young men declared that they would accompany him back, joking yet again about the brown lady. And this is where I warn y'all, if you tempt fate, fate will deliver. The corridor was long and dark, since the lights had already been extinguished by that point in the night, but as the group reached the middle of the corridor, they saw the glimmer of a lamp coming towards them from the other end, and assumed it was from one of the women in the home visiting a nursery. For context, the bedroom doors in that corridor faced each other, and each room had a double door with a space between, as is the case in many old-fashioned homes. Frederick felt uncomfortable being undressed around women, so out of modesty, slipped within one of the outer doors with the guys, in order to conceal himself until the lady should have passed by. As my roomie would say, what a distinguished gentleman. He watched her approaching nearer and nearer through the crack of the door until she was close enough for him to distinguish the colors and style of her outfit, and he recognized the figure as the brown lady. He had his finger on the trigger of his device and was about to demand that the ghost stop and give the reason for its presence there, when the figure halted of its own accord before the door, and while holding the lighted lamp she carried to her features, grinned in a malicious and diabolical manner at him. Ooh la la. This act infuriated Frederick, prompting him to leap into the corridor and discharge the device in her face. The figure instantly disappeared in the tiny, kaboom, passed through the outer door of the room on the opposite side of the corridor and lodged in the panel of the inner one. Frederick never attempted to interfere again, so I'll give him a common sense point for that. The brown lady was caught on camera on September 19th of 1936 when Captain Hubert C. Prevand, a London-based photographer working for Country Life magazine, and his assistant, Indre Shira, were taking photographs of Raynham Hall for an article. They claimed that they had already taken a photograph of the hall's main staircase and were setting up to take a second when Indre saw a vapory form slowly taking on the appearance of a woman moving down the stairs towards them. Captain Hubert quickly took the cap off the lens while Indre pressed the trigger to activate the camera's flash. Later, when the negative was developed, the now famous image of the brown lady was revealed. The ghostly experience and photograph of the brown lady was published in Country Life magazine on December 26th of 1936, January 4th, 1937 edition of Life magazine. In second place, we have a photo of John DeFeo. Now y'all know how much I love talking about Ed and Lorraine Warren's cases, so this should come as a shock to no one. If anyone needs a quick briefing on the Amityville horror house and not the movie, here goes it. On November 13th of 1974, during the very early morning hours, Ronald DeFeo Jr. ended his entire family and claimed that the demonic voices told him to do it. I'm talking both parents and 4 siblings. Look, I can't say that I've never joked about ending family members when I'm frustrated, but this is a bit too extreme for my liking. Oh, and about a year after that slaughter, a new family moved into the home, but fled after just 28 days, claiming it was haunted beyond any way to live in it, describing slime oozing from the walls, windows that would suddenly shatter, instances of levitation, and more. I'd be here for like an hour if I went into full detail. The image I'd like to highlight today was captured by Gene Campbell, a professional photographer who was part of the team who worked with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren, who were called in by the Lutz family during the horrors they experienced while, still trying to live in the home. Gene had set up an automatic camera that took infrared pictures to capture the second floor landing during the night. It features what appears to be a young boy with white eyes, believed to be John, who is peeking out of a doorway. George Lutz revealed the Amityville ghost boy photo. George Lutz revealed this photo on the Merv Griffin show back in 1979, 3 years after it was taken. In first place, we have Mary Lee of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. In the early 1900s, the warm, wet weather of Kentucky was the perfect breeding ground for tuberculosis, pushing all of the local hospitals' capacities way past their breaking point. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium first opened its doors on July 26 of 1910 as a 2-story wooden structure built to house about 50 patients, but in October of 1926, the hospital had expanded to a 400-bed capacity to accommodate a continual influx of patients as a now 5-story facility. The sanatorium first opened in the midst of a widespread epidemic, and we all know how epidemics and pandemics go, right? Because of the highly contagious nature of the disease, extreme quarantine measures were required for patients and staff alike, meaning Waverly Hills had to function as an isolated island. The self-sufficient facility produced its own food, raised animals, and ran a functioning post office. Also featured a 500-foot-long tunnel that traveled from the first floor of the building to the bottom of the hill. Supplies could be brought in from the bottom, and the countless countless bodies of deceased patients were discreetly removed from the top. With the eventual introduction of a vaccine, case numbers plummeted, and in 1961 the sanatorium was officially closed, but the pain and suffering of so many souls has left a permanent mark upon the site. And that's where we come in. The photo in question was taken on September 10th of 2006 by Tom Halstead during an overnight investigation of the facility by Missouri Paranormal Research on the 4th floor of the main hospital building at around 7 a.m. If you'd like me to be technical about it, the camera used was a Pentax K1000 35mm film camera with a ProMaster 56000 extendable flash. Black and white 400 ISO film was used, and according to data provided, the camera settings were at about 1/60th of a second speed with an f-stop of 5.6. As one can see, on the right of the frame there appears to be the apparition of a young woman with dark hair and a white nightgown or dress. With the death toll from the institution being well into the thousands, one could worry that she would never be identified. But we do have a lead. She is believed to be a young girl named Mary Lee, based on a photograph that was found of a similar looking girl signed Love Mary Lee on the back. One source claims that she is the legendary nurse who allegedly went the way of the rope necklace in room 502 after learning she was pregnant by a doctor and had tuberculosis. If you visit the sanatorium today for one of their ghost walks, you'll be sure to encounter her amongst the spooky residents that never left. And that's the end of our list and more additions to my list of future vacation spots. As much as I'd love to live in the Haunted Mansion at Disney World, I'd love to visit some real ghosties more and pay my respects to their history. What do you folks think? I'm pretty sure all of the photos that I discussed today were real, but let me know in the comments if you have other theories or photos you'd like to discuss.